Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. This is Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Hello there. Today, we're going to take a nostalgic trip back in time to a movie that came out well before we were born, with one actor that everybody knows and a bunch of other people. And some of them are big, some of them are made to look little, but everybody seems to have a good time and everybody gets a drink. We're talking today about the Irish classic Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We are releasing this episode on St. Patrick's Day, so I hope you're having some corned beef and cabbage, some Guinness. I wish there was still a Bennigan's around, because I really enjoyed Bennigan's.
I just know that to watch this movie, y'all are going to need some beers. So this is good. This is good. You'll need a good stout to make it through.
For anyone who is not familiar with this movie, I guess you're in for a treat, because you're going to hear a little bit about it from the podcast. It is on Disney Plus. It's a Disney movie, and it stars one Sean Connery, James Bond, in a role, and it's a family movie. So put it on. If it's still early in the day and you're listening to us, go put the movie on after you listen to the podcast, or do it vice versa, whatever you like. But I want to ask you, Mark, as to what your origin with this movie was.
One of my favorite bands that plays Irish music is called Darby O'Gill. And I was haphazardly Googling them once, and I was like, there's a movie named Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and somebody let that happen. And then I clicked on it, and I was like, this is a Disney movie with Sean Connery? And I filed it away. And then some wonderfully suave podcast host said, we need a movie to talk about on St. Patrick's Day. And I was like, wait, got it. And here we are.
So you've never seen this movie before reviewing it for the podcast?
Never have I ever.
Interesting. All right. Well, now I just went from 6 to midnight, because I feel like this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Oh, it is.
I've got a very similar origin story. I'd never heard of this movie. My wife is Irish. She was from the Dublin area, and she had brought this up, and we watched it, I think, a couple years ago around the time of St. Patrick's Day. And yeah, I had no idea this movie existed, and I was kind of excited because Sean Connery was in it. But I also knew that this was a movie from 1959. So I kind of had a feeling that something was going to be a little bit different, not what I'm used to, not what I'm accustomed to, but I was open to it. Any expectations going in? Did you do any wiki searches?
No,
any
baby.
plots?
I went in stone cold on this, knowing in my head that you were going to watch it. And I'm so excited in this podcast to not only hear your reaction, but to vicariously live through you and hear your wife's thoughts on this. Knowing that she is a very strongly opinionated and hilarious woman.
The only thing that she said to me was, before we started recording this, she's like, careful. Just be careful with what you're saying on this one.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to get you in so much trouble.
So this was in 1959. I have no idea who the director was. I had no idea whoever the
He's
actors
dead
were.
now.
With the, well, I mean,
So
a lot of those people are dead, so it's rest in peace. But
the Banshee came for all of them.
Did you know anyone besides Sean Connery?
No, and I still don't.
Fair enough.
Did
Fair
you?
enough. No idea. No idea. I wasn't that big into movies in 1959, so and I didn't really start watching a whole lot of movies. At least out of the
until the 80s, at least, is when you started watching movies. Right?
When I was born, that's when I started really watching movies. So that was quite a few years later. But yeah, I'm really curious though as to what your version of the plot is.
Oh man, this is. I'm going to heed your wife's words and be careful.
Careful.
And just say that a man past his prime gets a second chance at riches and finds that the richest he can be is to have a family.
That's one way to put it.
See how I was careful? See how I was careful?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say what my version of the plot is.
Oh, yay.
Drunk at a pub, listeners just are enamored by a man's tall tales. And his daughter is really just looking for a husband. Stars align. But somehow the king of the leprechauns gets involved and hilarity ensues. But that guy, the dad, it's an awful plot synopsis, but the dad learns a very important lesson that yes, family matters, and he is willing to sacrifice himself in order to let his young daughter not be taken off by the banshees or the death wagon or whatever it was. And yeah, just
Don't
lessons
poo
are
poo the
learned.
death wagon. Your wife will get you.
That's it. Like for me, I was trying to I had a kind of a tough time remembering what this movie was about because I watched it before and then watching it again, I watched it tonight to review it for the episode. And I was like, where's this going? I don't know what this has to do with. I misremembered everything. I thought Sean Connery was Darby O'Gill. And so I thought he was like the main character. But no,
You'd
not the
think, you'd
case.
think that you'd give James Bond the lead in this.
But he wasn't James Bond at that point. So he that was well in his early credits as an actor. I had a tough time trying to figure out who was who and what was going to happen, and if Darby was a good guy or a bad guy, or the little people were good guys or bad guys. And the little people only showed up for what was it, like two scenes?
I went into this movie so as an outside person, I thought that Sean Connery would be the Darby O'Gill guy too. I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Like
oh, that
007 is not the main character. Like
that,
what the
that
hell?
sideways teeth old man is Darby. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, that woman does live with her dad, and I bet he cut her bangs too. Because oh my, she lost a bet on that haircut. The one thing I will recommend to listeners about this before they even start watching it and before we get into the plot is please Google a drinking game to go along with this movie. It can only make it better. I Googled the Darby O'Gill and the Little People drinking game, and it's 4 easy steps. Do you want to talk through those steps now?
Sure.
So, 3 situations where you drink. Whenever you see leprechaun magic, anytime Darby gives that old man cackle, which
I was
is
gonna say, yeah,
all the
like
time, it's cacklerific. Every time someone makes an unusual Irish saying, anytime something just comes out, something that we don't understand, but your wife told us to be careful about. Anything that we can't make fun of because Dan's wife will beat us up. She'll hit us with a shillelagh. And then
I
you
think that's
finish your
more.
drink. Anytime King Brian shouts, ye wished your fourth wish, Darby.
Do you know much about Irish folklore or mythology at all?
Nothing. Nothing. And I've taken a trip. I've been. None of this came up. And I'm kind of happy it did because it was great.
Yeah, I don't know much about the folklore. The only things that I really know is from what my wife had told me, where they do believe that fairies exist, and there's
We
actually
did
like fairy houses amongst a lot of forests, and some of them are historical landmarks. Where
like
like
a
don't
fairy
fuck
tree.
with these. Yeah,
Well, the fairy, we did take a picture with a fairy tree at um what's the thing with the Blarney Castle. I've seen those. I
yeah.
didn't know the
It's
backstory.
I don't know anything
What
else.
about
Don't know
banshees?
anything else.
What about banshees?
Um, he was a underappreciated X-Man,
That's what I
but
thought
that's about
too.
it.
And he
That's
was
the
from
only thing
Inner
I know.
Sheeran, right? Like
That's
that's
I don't even Inisherin, I think is just like this smaller place on the island somewhere. I guess they're in other places too. It's just
Mm.
banshees are all over the place, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There's an interesting theme of like friendship in this movie because there's like a camaraderie and also an antagonistic approach to King Brian, who's the leprechaun, and Darby. Were you kind of surprised that it had that type of dynamic between the two? Like old drinking buddies that would just give each other shit sometimes, and that's how the
I
movie played
feel like
out.
that's just the warm love of the Irish people.
I guess, yeah. I don't
Except
know.
except for apparently old blonde Irish mothers and their Gaston ass sons. They're fucking weird and backstabby. They're plotters. They're plotters. They
That
must
they
be from
are.
Northern Ireland.
That's good call. Good call. Yeah, I don't. I guess there had to be some type of antagonist in there. I don't know if the antagonist really fit throughout the entire thing of everything. I would have been perfectly fine if it was just Darby is his own worst enemy, and it's just, like I would have liked to see an Aladdin type of thing where the wish is actually played out. But I guess you can't do that because they have Aladdin, so maybe they shouldn't have done that. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think you got
I
both though. You got the plotting Gaston bad guy. You got to see Sean Connery overcome something, but you also got to go on Darby's journey of the changing greed into love.
I guess. But was it really greed to begin with? Because this is something, well,
Hang on, wait a
I'm just
minute, wait a
gonna
minute. Before you ask that question, he caught the leprechaun to get the pot of gold. How was that not greed?
I think that's just supply and demand, right?
Also, the only Irish folklore I knew. The leprechaun has both stars, moons, horseshoes, rainbows, and balloons, and a pot of gold. That's all I
Ooh,
knew.
Lucky Charms, huh? For your three wishes, what are they gonna be?
Can I wish for more wishes?
No.
That wasn't a rule
Because
here.
once you make four, whatever that saying is, all the other shit doesn't happen
Hmm.
anymore.
Hmm. I don't know. I think that I don't know. I don't know what kind of person I would be with wishes. Good thing they're not real, so I don't have to impact that. But I think that you wish for some level of wealth and security and some level of health and good wishes. But I always feel like wishes in these kind of movies always come back as lessons. Like you get it, but you get it in like a fucked up way. Like I want to live forever. Great, you live forever as a quadriplegic. There you go. Or like, oh, I want to be
Yeah, as
rich.
a
Great, you'll be
quadriplegic.
rich in jail. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm off the wishes. I'm off the wishes. Let me get a couple lottery wins. Let me be able to, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that is like Pandora's box, right? No, you don't wish for world peace.
Oh.
You don't wish for world peace
Mm.
because the reason why, and I'm not even saying that to be like a skeptic type of prick about it, but Darby had said something at the end where he said something to the effect that you need sadness to balance the happiness out or something like that. So the happiness is
Mm.
truly happy, right? I think kind of the same thing goes for peace and war. You kind of need to have some of these little skirmishes. I'm not saying that I endorse the death that happens with them, but some of the wars are justified. So yeah, but that's just
From a
my
certain point of
justification
view.
for that. Yeah.
Let's just go into your three wishes. You were so eager to ask me. What are yours?
That I could eat anything that I want without having any negative health repercussions. Number one. Number two, I would of course have some level of wealth without any negative repercussions or change to my current living status and stuff like that. And then for the last one, so I can eat whatever I want, good amount of wealth. And then for the last one, I think I would probably ask for the cure of an illness like cancer or something. Because I feel like that would be something that could be utilized. But when it comes to the cure for a disease, which takes too many people's lives to begin with, and we still have no idea how we get some of these diseases. There's just correlations to things. And yeah, I would say like a cure for cancer or something like that.
I like that. I like that. Very safe.
Selfish, but safe.
Mm.
And also, Heroic, some would say. That's what heroes
Gluttony,
do.
greed, and good is like still doesn't balance the scale, my friend.
Triple G, baby. What are you talking
Oh,
about? You tell me that Triple G isn't good.
Triple G does not balance the scales.
Oh, it certainly does, especially my scale. Because this is an older movie, I want to kind of throw out some other movies that were released around the same time. So around 1959, Sleeping Beauty came out, The Shaggy Dog, The Big Fisherman, which I've never heard of, and then Third Man on the Mountain, which I also have never heard of. Have you heard of any of those movies?
Sleeping Beauty and the Shaggy Dog, I remember.
And
Those
not the
those are
other
the
two, right?
classics.
So
Those are classics. But yeah, I mean, this is an OG. I figured you would really love the VFX in this. I thought that they would stand out to you.
it did, and I was actually pretty surprised and impressed with them. What were your thoughts?
So let me ask you a question before I answer that question. When you saw the title of this movie the first time, what did you expect the makeup of the cast to be?
Like Irish people? Is that what you mean? Like I don't
Is
know
that
what you
what I
mean.
mean? I think you know what I mean.
The makeup of the people?
What's the right word to say this? How did you expect them to cast the little people?
Oh, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't really know because I didn't assume that they were all going to be leprechauns, if that's what you mean. Like I didn't
I
think they were all going to be wearing like green blazers and fucking top hats.
I thought that the way that they created the camera effects to shrink normal people down was really amazing for the time.
Yeah,
For
I
the time,
was
I was
funny you mentioned
expecting
that.
I was expecting to be careful on this podcast, not because of your wife's veiled threat, but because I was like, oh, after I recommended, you said you were watching it, I was like, I really hope this cast isn't made up of a group that we can offend. Um, Not worried about the Irish in that
So you
sentence,
were
but
just talking about you thought that everyone was going to be little people. Is that what you mean?
I was like, I mean, I saw Return of the Jedi. This came out 15 years before that, but I or 25 years before that,
I was going
maybe.
to say 15
Yeah,
is that's a
but
light.
I really thought the effects in this were not that bad, considering. Now there were some exceptions to that for me. The
The
really weird horse effect at the beginning, where the horse went all bluey on everybody, was
yeah,
like,
that
that's
I
an
didn't
interesting
understand.
choice. And the
I
banshee was hilarious.
I thought that was fine in terms of like the effects that they used. Yeah, is it cheesy? Of course it is, in comparison to the technology that we have today. But the horse one, I was just kind of confused by. I wasn't like irked by it, but I was just like, why is that happening?
Why is
Like, what's
Mr.
going
Ed
on?
going all technicolor?
That totally was Mr. Ed because it had all the tricks.
All
Darby
of
had
it
that horse with all the
down.
tricks, the wink,
That
the
horse should have gotten
smile.
an Oscar.
The trainer should have gotten the Oscar. The
Hey,
horse would have gotten a bag of oats.
oh, maybe an apple.
The Yeah, I was very much surprised by the camera effects for the little people. And I was as Darby was walking between them, I was thinking like, how are they doing this? How is this working? What is this sorcery that they have in 1959 to make this so realistic? And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. So kudos to those people in
Layering,
1959 for making it realistic to me.
layering. It's the same technology Disney did to put people and animation in the same. They'd roll the film
On top.
stacked.
Okay. Well, thank you for that insight. So
I'm
now
here
I
for you. And
feel a lot better
if
about
if
that.
I'm wrong, somebody wants to call me out, go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong. I'll read your
That's all right.
comments.
That's all right. Yeah. I do the social media guys, so you can call it out. I'll probably just fire back or ignore you, just like I do with a lot of the people out
Probably the
there.
latter one.
So
We'll layer in some responses there.
the uh the characters and the performances. So let's talk about them. So Darby O'Gill, right? You got this old borderline senile man, or at least that's what people think because they're just making fun of him. They think he's just some old senile guy that thinks he sees leprechauns and stuff like that. What did you think of him as a character and his performance throughout?
Honestly, I wasn't bothered by the actor. I thought that for somebody that I'd never seen before, and I have no idea, I didn't even look up his acting history, but
Albert Sharp is the guy's name. I didn't even know that.
I thought he did a good job. I learned to enjoy the character. I thought that the casting choices were good because other than Sean Connery and Gaston, there weren't really like everybody wasn't pretty, and I liked that.
That's
Does
okay.
that make sense?
So you're just saying like they're all ugly or
Like there's a lot of bad teeth, there was a lot of salt of the earth people, and I enjoyed that.
okay.
It made a
Careful.
very real.
Careful.
I'm talking about the actors, not talking about the fine Irish people.
But I will say that Sean Connery and Janet Monroe, Katie O'Gill, the character, they
Janet,
had
Janet.
some pearly white chompers. They had
Yeah,
some
Sean
pretty
Connery
astounding
had some
teeth.
teeth. Gaston had some teeth. I don't
Dude,
even know what his character's
oh,
name
he
is.
did. He did his
That
smile.
guy
You're right.
had like the closest thing to fake teeth I've ever seen. For some, like, I don't know if they had fake teeth then, but dude had some grills.
The people that were used for this, both as the little people and like the patrons at the pub, did they just get like cast and crew? Just be like, hey, get your family and your friends here. Let's just get a bunch of people and just keep the costs down. I feel like that might have been something.
See, I think what they did is they pulled a Ted Lasso, but in 1959, is they went to the area because the arts are everywhere, including in Ireland. There are very talented people, not just Ed Sheeran, that come from Ireland, and and he's not
Debatable
even
about Ed
from
Sheeran.
Yeah, yeah, as I was going to say, he's probably not even that Irish. But I mean, you can go grab people, and there's plays, there's theaters, there's all these things. They could have done the same thing they did with Ted Lasso, a Hannah Waddingham that they just pulled out of the West End. The one thing about this movie is it didn't feel like they faked it.
Hmm.
Like nobody felt like they were faking the accent. But
Okay.
I'm not the best. There could be somebody from your wife could be like, Mark, you're fucking stupid. Obviously, some of these people were, but I still thought it was, it was pretty spot on.
Irish accents are always kind of funny. So my wife will always talk about, like when people do Irish accents in America, they all talk like leprechauns. I don't think they really did that for this movie. So I'm sure that, and I'm going down the cast list. It looks like you've got quite a few people that are of Irish descent, or at least have Irish sounding names. There's a lot of O's in the last names for for the people like O'Day, O'Mahony. So yeah, okay. You're probably right on that. So where they had people that were local there. If not, you know what? It's 1959. They're all dead anyways. They're not going to care, and they're not going to come after us. But rest in peace, by the way. But yeah, I was good with everything. I didn't think that the performances were forced. Something that was a little bit interesting to me, and I use that as a understatement, is the like you talked about the Darby the Darby O'Gill cackle. There were so many scenes that it just went on for quite a bit, and part of it was just the laughing, and then like the music scenes went on a little too long, I think.
So I didn't mind the music scenes, but the laughing reminded me of the Family Guy episode where he goes to meet his dad. He's just like, ha 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 ha. It just
The
was like, okay, yeah, this is where they get this.
so the little people scene where he starts playing the fiddle for everyone,
The Stradivarius.
and it was so long. It was just like they were going around in circles, and as they were riding the horses, I felt that scene was going around in circles. I was
They
like,
had to play the whole Fox Hunt, man.
I get it,
It was the
but
lead up. And
you
the song
coulda
goes
you
on.
could have skipped some of that fox hunt.
Ask
Like
your wife if you could disrespect the music in Ireland. Stop it. Stop it.
it's a song that he made up, so they didn't even know it. So they just went along with it. So I don't know. From a movie perspective, I do know movies. and I know movies that have scenes that are too long, thanks to Zack Snyder. So this was almost Zack Snyder-esque in the sense that, like,
Uh,
whoa. So whoever the director was, he must really like Irish music because he's gonna let this sucker go on for the entirety of the song. Hey, what are we gonna do for the action shot? Like, just have him ride around on some horses. That'll
but
do
there'll be
it.
little horses.
Yeah, that's so strange to me, but
They shrank down
it's
horses, Dan. You should be impressed.
it's magical.
Leprechaun
It's
magic.
magical. Absolutely. The daughter, Katie. All right. So talk to me about your thoughts on her arc and what she did in the movie.
What arc? She was
Exactly.
Amber Heard in Aquaman 2. Hey, look, there
It-
she is. She gone. There she is. She's gone.
but you've got Sean Connery as her love interest, which that's another thing too. That was so, and this probably goes for majority of movies and TV shows back in the day. Like when someone says that they love someone, it's because they just met them. I think that's
And
like a
because
prerequisite
they
to
were
say
in
that you love
Catholic
someone.
community, so they couldn't test the waters. Like if we're gonna do this, let's
Yeah.
just do it right.
Hey, I love you, okay? I said the words, so let's make this happen
Listen,
because
I'm gonna say, as I saw this movie, and as it was getting to the scene where Sean Connery was a courting, I remember Sean Connery Bond scenes where Bond goes straight Pepe Le Pew on some women. Like Bond takes it. He didn't.
no, he
He was
gives
very
it. He
reserved and
gives it.
respectful. I was like, so Sean Connery can be less Cosby than he is as Bond. Okay, I'm with it.
For some reason, I remember him hitting her in the movie. And I think I was just confusing real life Sean Connery with his character because I thought
Sometimes you
for
gotta
sure
slap a woman.
like she was talking down to him and being spicy, and I thought he was like one slap away from like, oh, this is where he slaps her. Like, oh no, he doesn't slap her. For those who don't know, Sean Connery had an interview with Barbara Walters, and he openly said something about hitting women or whatever, and so that's what I'm referring to. But I remembered wrong. It's this art did not imitate life.
Don't stop besmirching the knighted Sean Connery.
It is what it is for the movie. I didn't uh, the different types of effects that were used that we were talking about before. I thought were still pretty impressive, and I think it holds up just fine considering the fact that it was 1959. I've definitely seen a lot worse effects from movies even later than that
Oh yeah,
that didn't look as good.
The
So
Thing.
kudos to them.
I'm sorry you didn't like the Devil Went Down to Ireland scene though. I'm sorry you didn't like it.
I don't even know what you're talking about, so I don't
You
know.
don't remember the fiddle song, The Devil Went Down to Georgia? You're terrible. You suck. Oh, somebody got that and they cackled like Darby O'Gill. So
If you did, comment below.
everybody got it, man. It's a golden fiddle, not a Stradivarius. I need to know this, and I might make you just go ask your wife. Can leprechauns really get drunk? I didn't know that was a thing.
I
Huge
would
plot
assume
point in
that
the
they
movie.
could.
Why can leprechauns get drunk?
They're little people. And he drank way more in comparison to his body.
I mean, he's got a hollow leg, but isn't that just a good Irish
The
aptitude?
cup was the size of his entire torso, and he drank the entire cup. So, if anything, that's super impressive as to how much he drank because he drank for like 100 men. The size of that cup in comparison to his body, oh, for sure. That
So he's
that
basically Captain
ratio,
America.
he was pretty good.
The
Yeah, he
king
was
of the
pretty good.
leprechauns is like Captain America.
He can metabolize it pretty quick. But yeah, I don't know. Any other brain busters?
How did you feel about the sleep scenes where Sean Connery literally sits up and is obviously playing asleep like your kid pretends they're asleep?
I just figured that as being acting in 1959. Right? I mean,
So
I'm not
good.
wrong on that. Like, acting in
No.
1959 is not Joaquin Phoenix in 2020. You know what I mean? Like, it
Oh.
doesn't, it's not the same type of
I
caliber of acting. You
I
could get
just
away with a lot more back then.
is really funny. It was just really funny to me. There's so many things about this movie that just like stuck out from a feel good perspective to me.
Did you have any favorite moments or quotes or scenes in the movie?
I didn't write down anything about scenes. I thought I thought one thing I wanted to talk to you about, right? Other than the his daughter died from having terrible bangs. That the fight choreography at the end, where instead of showing the fight, they just showed his facial reaction to it. I'm like, this is John Wick 5. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Like all it was just like a close up on Darby, like for a good portion of it. And he's just like
How
very
bad,
strange pick.
how bad must have Sean Connery and the other guy been at throwing fake punches?
I bet you that has to do with something about the actual movie itself, in terms of
Oh, being like
being
rated
released
G?
as a so, yeah, or like just being a
Oh,
Disney movie itself
that could be. You've made a good point for the first time in our podcast. Good job.
of this episode. What are you talking about? It's I spend majority of my time proving you wrong on every other episode because you make some asinine claim.
Listen, my friend, if you making good points was a drinking game, nobody would be drunk listening to our podcast. But how did you feel about this? Was there anything that stuck out for you? Any great quotes?
Quotes, I mean, I can't say it was a great quote because I don't remember what it was, but uh, that little quote that he had referencing happiness and sadness, like just I thought that was really good. But I thought the scene with him and King Brian, while he's in the death cart, was cool because I knew where it was going. I knew that, like,
Did you
oh, he
know the
sacrificed
first
himself
time
for
you
his.
saw it?
I don't remember the first time I saw it. I probably fell asleep the first time I saw it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But the second time, like, I was trying to figure out, like, oh, okay, so he sacrificed himself. Now his daughter gets to go and live off, and maybe King Brian's gonna be pals with his daughter now. But then I was thinking, like, no, I don't think that's quite it. And then when he was asking him about stuff, and he was saying like, "Oh, I wish blah blah blah," I was like, "Oh, he's gonna do it." And so that's where I saw like, "Oh yeah, he wished for his fourth wish, which now negates it, which then should have meant that they just go back and take Katie." But
Yeah.
I understood where they're coming from.
Yeah. Once it's going, it can't stop.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I will say that the writing on this, while it was, kind of out there and funny, I thought it brought a lot of what I can only assume are strong ties to Irish legend and things. But the fact that they talked about it at the beginning and it was his story, and then they hit it again at the end to resolve the story is
it's good
actually
storytelling.
like really good storytelling. There are movies now, every DC movie, that can't make it that tight.
The overview and the recap. If the overview of what you're gonna do is not the same as the recap, there's something that's amiss. So it's a very easy thing to neglect from the
Oh, and
DC
it's
perspective.
neglected heavily. But I'm going to say that for an older movie, one, it's not as long as many movies from this era, right? It was a tight hour and a half. The story coming back around, it doesn't make me hate this movie.
The is there anything that you would tell to the listeners who may have not have seen this as they're going into it? Any wise words?
Drinking game. Drinking game, and you can watch this with your kids. It's not really like there's a banshee, there's some funny, scary parts. My son was like, "What is that?" Like, was not scared at all. And he's 3. And like he wouldn't ride Haunted Mansion twice. So if you want to put on a scale of 1 to scared there, like refused to go on it again. I could see this as oh, it's St. Patrick's Day and I have kids and I can't go to the bar. What are we going to do? You could get a group of people together with kids, put this on the TV, safe for the kids, still have the drinking game going.
Before we get going, I got a question to ask you. When it comes to Darby O'Gill and the Little People, can you do this movie all day?
I can't answer that because I don't know. Like, I'm gonna try maybe next year putting this on and maybe getting a 12 pack of Guinness and seeing what we could do if I can get a team together to do it. But like,
Team.
is there an Irish movie that's kid safe that we can think of? Like, it's hard. So I don't know that I can do this all day, but it's not a firm no for me. It's just not like gonna be in my top five recommended movies.
What about from a St. Patrick's Day perspective of Irish themed movies?
I think it's a good sleeper. Again, because there's a way to have a drinking game to it that's consistent for sure with the cackling and the leprechaun magic. But enough about me. Enough about me. Let's talk about your legal obligation to do this movie all day. Does it exist or does not it exist? Can you do this movie all day?
It's funny that you say legal obligation because I felt like, well, I guess I have to say that I can. But as you
Does your
know,
wife hate this movie?
I'm I'm a natural dissenter regardless. So you put up a rule or tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna do it anyways. But when it came to this movie, I was it was a roller coaster for me. I was thinking like, ah, fuck, what did I do here? Like, why did I mention this movie? And why are we watching this for the podcast? I don't think this is going to be good for the podcast. Two, there's some pretty interesting things that we can talk about here. To, oh wow, the effects are actually pretty good. And then you got the music in there to where it's like the music went on a little too long, but hey, there's some legitimate tunes here, so I can appreciate that for the Irish culture. It's about as close of a decision as I can make, but I'm going to say that I can do this all day. And it's because I think it was very well done. The reviews and ratings on this movie were very, very surprising. So you have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I would have assumed that Rotten Tomatoes would have just tore this to shreds. You also have a couple other ratings, 7.1 on IMDb, which is my preferred go-to for rankings. And like, that's pretty accurate. It's not, you know, Breaking Bad or, like Citizen Kane or anything like that. But at the same time, this is a very solid, well thought out, well put together movie. And I can't even say that about a lot of movies that I've seen recently. So for that reason, yeah, I can do it all day.
I agree. Like, this movie was better than the Eternals.
No, Eternals is we should do a rewatch of that. I really think that you would, now that enough time has passed since your initial viewing of it. I think it's, but that's neither here nor there. I
This
think
movie
it's
is better than
definitely,
Madam Web.
oh my gosh. I saw a clip of someone uh recording from their phone the laughing of the theater as it was coming to an end. I was like, oh man, I wish I was at that theater. I felt like that could have been such a good, fun experience for me and great for the podcast too. But yeah,
This
unfortunately, I
movie
didn't.
is exceptionally better than Morbius.
I would say so. Better than Morbius. I would also say better than Suicide Squad.
Which one?
Um, the first one. I do enjoy it a little bit better now, but God, I really hated that movie when I saw it in theaters. Hated it.
Is it better
Or
than
if
BVS?
uh, no, I liked
Martha,
BVS. I liked it.
Martha.
I enjoyed it. That was Batman
Mm,
versus Superman, first time on the silver screen. I enjoyed it.
mm,
Were there bad points about it? Yeah. Were
so
there
many.
great points about it? Like Wonder Woman? Hell yeah. But if you can find it in yourself to appreciate older type of movies and that retro type of flair and appreciate good writing and good practical effects, then yeah, this movie would be a good one for you. But until next time, this is Dan, the part-time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Like, subscribe. What's your favorite St. Patrick's Day movie?
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Sláinte.